Welcome back, everyone, to the GOATcast podcast. We are back. I am CW, joined by my man, Big Nige over there.
Yes, sir.
Hope you guys had a great holiday. If you're here in the States, great Thanksgiving. You didn't overdo it. I'm sure you're back in the work week right now like we are. So just going to jump into some quick NBA talk and just give you a few thoughts on some things going on right now around the association. Some pretty interesting games last week during the break or during the Thanksgiving holiday. We had a pretty good game between Milwaukee and Boston. But it was the game after that. The Warriors were taking on, I believe, I can't remember what team they were taking on, but it was the late night game. And Chris Paul and Scott. Who was it?
It was the Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix Suns, okay. So it was the Suns and the Warriors. Already down Draymond Green. Chris Paul and Scott Foster got into it once again, and it led to his ejection. It led to back-to-back techs. I believe Steve Kerr got a tech as well, and it just brings up some questions about refereeing. We've also seen, of course, we talked about Giannis getting that tech for just kind of saying the guy was too small. We've seen Jason Tatum this past week get a tech for hanging on the rim. Also LeBron James. So are the referees becoming a problem in the NBA? Are they taking some of their power on the court and overusing them? Basically just doing things that could really be detrimental to teams and pretty much put some of the star players in a bad situation because, I mean, I haven't seen a hanging on the rim tech in forever. I didn't think that still existed in the NBA, but for some reason they seem to be pulling that out these past couple of games. And is this problematic? Is this becoming something that is becoming a bigger problem that the NBA might need to step in and kind of look at, because the referees do hold a lot of power when it comes to the game and the flow of the game. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I'll just be honest with you. Like, these refs, they're looking softer than baby wipes, man. Like, and I know referees get a bad rep. Like, they're not going to get every call. Everybody expects them to be perfect. Like, I understand it's a tough job, and therefore it comes with its share of criticism. But the amount of ejections, more specifically when you have Giannis and Jokic on the receiving end of those ejections, that's a problem. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that there's already been 14 ejections this year alone. We're about 15 games into the season, where only last season there was only 75, which means we're almost a fifth of the way to last season's ejections totals, 15 games into the season. That is a problem. Technical fouls. Last season there was 939. We're already up to 177. And I guarantee you almost a good maybe 25% of those are those stupid rim techs where you hang on the rim. The most dumbest thing I think I've ever seen. Like, you have dudes dunking the ball, hanging on the rim because there's people under their feet so they don't land on them, but they get called for a tech for hanging on the rim too long. Like, if anything, that's their problem if they don't get back on defense because they're hanging on the rim so long. You can't punish the offensive play for hanging on the rim, stopping the game, and then give them a technical foul. Like, all that is just, it's not even basketball at this point. So I really think that the NBA does need to hold the refs accountable. You're seeing players get fined for, talking back to the refs. If they don't agree with the call, well, the refs have the power to just throw that player out the game. Just off of one small argument, they can just throw them out the game. And I think the NBA needs to step in and change the rules a little bit, because one referee shouldn't have the power to basically change the flow of the entire game. I think if you're going to talk about throwing a player out the game, I think it needs to be unanimous. I think they have 3-4 refs on the floor. Yep. I think every ref should weigh in on that. It shouldn't just be, for example, Chris Paul versus Scott Foster. It should be the referee crew as a whole to really assess the situation. Because if it's just two guys that have an issue with each other, well, then the other 2 or 3 refs that are on the floor during the time, they can come together and be like, okay, let's maybe have one of us be near where Chris Paul's going to stand. Because if you know he's a perimeter player, he's going to be standing above the 3-point line. Let's have somebody else other than Scott Foster have that angle so that they can make that call maybe correctly or maybe more fairly, especially if you got 2 people already arguing and bickering. That referee is going to be biased, and he's not going to be looking for those calls that Chris Paul would probably want because they've already gotten into it over who knows what. I think that the NBA saying how they review the play the next day, more specifically, the Lakers played the Heat a few games ago, and there was a bunch of calls on LeBron James that didn't get hit. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say LeBron needs every call in the book, but what does it tell to a player and a team that you guys, they've been complaining about the calls in the game, in the heat of the game, but then you go the next day after the game's already been decided, the Lakers already lost, and you say, yeah, by the way, these were fouls or these weren't fouls. Well, what does that do for a player if they were fouls? The game is over, they lost because they feel like they got fouled or cheated, and you guys just said the NBA ruled that these were fouls. At that point, they need to step in and I don't know, give a team another challenge or give them something that can truly make up for the fact of them missing all those calls. Now you can even go to last season, right? Again, the Lakers against the Celtics. There was a blatant Jason Tatum foul on LeBron James. It was clear as day. A blind person could see that was a foul. Even Patrick Beverly walks up to the refs with the camera and said, "Are you blind?" This man got his whole forearm taken down, and they didn't call it. LeBron was animated. We never see LeBron this animated. And he was going absolutely insane, just like he rightfully should. There's a lot of things to say about referees, and I get it. I know they don't get a good rep. But man, some of these refs really need to get out of their feelings, man, because it's getting ridiculous, the amount of stuff that's going on today.
I agree completely. And knowing someone that refs not professionally, but refs for our local high schools, some AAU games and tournaments, he even says it's a tough job. And sometimes you do take things personal. It's hard not to when you have coaches, you have parents, you have players just in your ear constantly. It's hard not to take some of that personal. And I think that, just like you said, there should be kind of a round robin. If you obviously see one referee get into it with another player, you should just, like you said, just switch referees, put another guy over there with that, in that player's area, just to kind of calm the situation down. And then just see where you go from there. But you should never let the referees be able to dictate who's on the court and who's not. That's just not fair. That's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to the players. Players, them having to change how they play is not right for the game. And them having to, like you said, having to potentially put themselves in danger if they dunk and someone's under them and they fall. Well, they're going to get called a foul, or they're going to get called, they might be a flagrant if they come down with the elbow or knee. So, you penalize yourself by trying to abide by certain rules in the end. And that's, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. And I think that since Adam Silver and since the NBA makes player, when they get assessed a fine or something like that, they make that public. I think they need to do the same for referees. If they say they do, I guess, have some type of system in the background where they do, I guess, I don't want to say punish them, but they do, I guess, speak with that ref or that official or something of that nature. But it needs to be made public, because I think that would make those referees, spotlight will be on them a little more, and then that'll make them make a non-emotional call, because they know, hey, they saw I got fined $5,000 here, $10,000 here. I can't be just going off on this player or that player. So I think they need to make it more visible of what's going on in the background when it comes to referees. And I in that end of the game kind of summary, I think they need to get rid of that, because I think that just, like you said, just ruins it for. I mean, if you see that they made blatant bad calls, your eyes will tell you that they made bad calls, but then they come out and say, "Hey, we made 5 wrong calls in the last 2 minutes." That pretty much could have cost this team a game. You know what? Like you said, what does that do for that team? What does that do for the league? What's that? That just says you have incompetent refs. So I don't understand why they do that. I think that if that comes out that they have X amount wrong, they used to say that officiating crew are fined X amount of dollars. I just think that's just fair. So I mean, it's definitely a problem. And I didn't know those numbers you just gave about the amount of techs and ejections. That's ridiculous this early on in the game, and especially when you're trying to, you're holding this in-season tournament. You're trying to get the fans involved and get the interest up early, and then you have referees doing things like this and just, ejecting guys like Giannis, who doesn't have a bad rep at all. Jokic. These guys, for the most part, are pretty good guys from what you can tell. So those guys getting ejected, and then CP3 it's just getting out of hand. And I think that there has to be something. I think the Players Association, something's got to give to where, somebody steps up and says something. They get fined when they do, but I think if enough people come together and say something will have to be done sooner than later. So moving on from referees, do you got anything else to say about the NBA's refereeing and the bad reputation they're starting to get?
I mean, at this point, man, the people from home can ref games. If you can literally just a whole 48-minute game, just literally look at a game like this, you're basically like a modern day NBA ref. They don't see hardly anything unless, now mind you, they have locked in vision. If someone's hanging on that rim, best believe they got 4 eyes. It's ridiculous. They are. I don't know, man.
The thing is, you don't want instant replay, a whole lot of that, because it'll drag games out. I think sometimes way too much. And when you're televising a game, the worst thing you can do is, have a game last way longer, go way over. But it has to be something done where, like they do, I think on TNT or even ESPN, they have the former ref or the ref that's in there in there looking at the computer, looking at the screens, looking at what just happened. I think you should get some input from that person. You should have an official, back in the back, that sees these plays, and they've got to all agree. At the end of the day, when it's something like that, I don't think it should be a challenge. I think if it's that close, or if it's that to the point where everyone kind of can see it and is talking, I think you should go to the monitors, let the refs on the court look at it, and someone in the back who's, I guess, his opinion, he's not out there, so he's not seeing or hearing what's going on. Let them kind of decide what they see, and then come to one agreement at the end, so that and like I said, I don't want instant replay, but I think something needs to be done so that there's not so many errors, and it doesn't cost a team who might be on the verge of getting into the playoffs to have to take a loss and just be like, well, we did everything right, it was the ref's fault. So I just think something has to be done to kind of rectify that.
I agree.
So moving from referees, so far this season's been pretty exciting. There's some teams that have stepped up that I did not see doing as well as they have. It's still early. It's still November. We're almost into December, but we're only a month in. We've got plenty of time, but some teams are really showing that they will be teams to be reckoned with in the upcoming season and the seasons to come. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to share our power rankings for these first 16, 17 games so far in the season, and kind of give our thoughts on those teams and how they're doing, if they can keep up, this trajectory as far as their rankings amongst the entire league. So I'm gonna let you go first, which we're gonna do our top 5. This is the entire league, so it's West and East. So I'm gonna let you start, and I will follow you up.
Okay, yeah. So I think coming in at number 5, I have the Orlando Magic. I think they are one of those teams that's coming on strong. I like the leap that Paulo Banchero has made. Franz Wagner, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I like how he's looked. They just look like a scrappy team. Like they're a lot bigger than I give them credit for. You got Jonathan Isaac coming in there, and so they have lineups sometimes where the 3 through 5 is 6'10" plus. And the NBA, you win a lot of games with your size because there's a lot of teams that still try to play smaller, switch everything. But if you can switch everything and still keep, 6'10" plus in your wing position, and of course your big man position as well, you're going to be a very dangerous team, especially in today's NBA. They've had some really good W's. They just got done beating the Celtics, who everybody knows is a really, really good basketball team. And I think I wouldn't put them any higher than 5 because I think it's a little bit of fool's gold. I won't lie and say I expect them to be a top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference by any stretch of the imagination, but I give them their flowers. They got a 6-game win streak right now. Like I said, I love what I'm seeing from Paulo, and I hope they can continue this, but realistically speaking, they're just one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now.
I absolutely agree. And I will talk about them soon, but my number 5 team right now is the Philadelphia 76ers, 11-5. They had a hot start. They lost opening night against the Bucks, but they were able to right that wrong and go on a streak after they got rid of Harden. They're the 6th best offense, so they're clicking there. Embiid is, of course, in the MVP talks. He's averaging 30-something points right now. Tobias Harris is playing well. Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre Jr., who's unfortunately out right now, but he was putting up big points for him. They got the haul that they got from the Harden trade. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm all out of whack. But yeah, Robert Covington Jr., Nicholas Batum, not putting up huge numbers, but they're contributing positively defensively. So, they're a good team. They've lost to the Timberwolves, the Cavs. They've had some teams beat them that they probably should have beaten, but they've also beaten Boston. They've beaten Phoenix. They've beaten the Thunder, who's looking really good. So I think Philly right now, for me, is the 5th best team overall. They have a lot of positives, and I think that they will trend back up because they're just that good. They have the squad to really get far once we get to the postseason. But right now they're going through a little growing pains. I think Embiid was out a game or 2 hurt. They're going to go through these lulls. Of course, it's a long season. So, yeah. So right now they're my 5th, but I think that they're definitely going to rise as the season goes along.
Okay. Yeah. And I know, ironically speaking, I will be talking about that team because they are my number 4 team in the power rankings. So obviously they have Joel Embiid, monster of a player, like you said, averaging, 30-something, double-double. We know what we're getting from Joel Embiid at this point in his career. There's nothing really he can do that's going to make us say anything that we haven't already said about him. Now, obviously the question is, can he keep this production up in the postseason? Now that he's going to be the guy, there's no James Harden that he can try to defer to and hide behind when, the lights get the brightest. We've seen what Joel Embiid can do in the regular season. He was the MVP last year. And I think this hot start, I do give the credit to Joel Embiid. I think everybody understands that Tyrese Maxey is here to stay. Mm-hmm. And I think the numbers he's putting up, I think that's what's transitioned the 76ers I guess early because they usually start a little bit on the slower side just because Joel Embiid has to either do more than what he's doing currently against these bottom tier teams, or some players aren't really producing. The Tobias Harris of the world, and Maxey would kind of be like in and out, and you'd have Harden from last season who would kind of be in and out. So it was a lot of inconsistent parts that were a good fit, but they just weren't gelling correctly at that time in the season. They usually hit their stride probably the middle toward the end of the season. But like I said, Tyrese Maxey has been one of the best guards in the league, not just the Eastern Conference, in the entire league this far. So you got to give them their respect, and I put them at number 14 in the power rankings.
Yeah, I mean, you could flip those two teams there. I mean, I'm just going to give Orlando Magic, because that's my number 4 team, a little more love because they weren't expected to be here. So this may be the only time they get in the top 5 of the power rank on my list. But anyway, they are 11-5. As you said, Paulo, he's playing very good. Franz Wagner playing good. Even Cole Anthony playing pretty good. They've beaten some really good teams. The Lakers, some good teams. Yeah, they got the Lakers, but they lost the Lakers. They lost to the Nets, Lakers, Clippers, and Hawks. But that's not a bad group of teams to have lost to throughout the season. They are sitting right now the 3rd best defense. And they also have a big win over the Bucks. They, like I said, they've beaten the Celtics and they've beaten the Bucks. So they have some pretty big wins as a team that nobody penciled in to be even in the top. I don't even know if anybody penciled them in to be within range of the play-in this season, but they have definitely opened some eyeballs to that. And I think that they're going to be a team that we're going to look at, maybe not this season, but in the seasons to come. If they can just, continue to, their young core can continue to grow, and they can maybe pull some, some veterans in there, somehow get some guys in there that can kind of add what's needed. I think Orlando will be a pretty good team, but for right now, they're sitting at my number 4 in the whole league, surprisingly. But like I said, they may not be there long, but right now, I can't deny they're doing well.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying so far. Nothing too egregious at this point. So then we get to my number 3, and my number 3 team is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And they are, obviously, like I said, they were a team that in my little hot takes video, you can go back and look at it. I said they were going to go deep in this year's playoffs. And I see honestly, they've proved me right ever since I said it. They've continued to rise in the Western Conference. I think they're currently sitting at number 1. And I've already said, I've already gone through, they've had notable victories against the Denver Nuggets. They've beaten the Warriors, and other teams are therefore I'm not going to get into all their schedule. But like I said, I like what I'm seeing from Anthony Edwards. He's taken that next step that we all have been wanting him to take. Karl Anthony Towns was the oddball out last season. I think he's starting to find his role with this team. He's starting to pick his spots and find consistency within that offense. Like I said, I like Rudy Gobert's defense. I like that he's looked a step faster on the defensive end. He's got a little bit more spring in that jump when he's trying to block shots. I mean, like I said, we're not here to talk about his offense, but again,
not bad offensively.
But he's not bad offensively, and maybe we see an all-star duo with Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, and maybe just by the possibility that Anthony Edwards takes home that MVP trophy. But we'll see from there.
That would be that would be some good dreaming to get that. But no, I don't think that's quite in his trajectory this year. But soon. So my number 3 right now is the OKC Thunder. I think they're playing very well. They're a very young team, but you look at these numbers. They're the 4th best offense in the league right now, and they're the 9th best defense. So they're getting it done on both ends, top 10, both areas. They've got some big wins over. They've beaten the Suns, the Warriors. Took L's to the Pelicans and Denver. Nothing. That's to be expected for a young team like that. But Shea averaging 30.4. They got the rookie Chet, 18-8. I mean, then you go in Jalen Williams, Josh Giddey. They're all double figures. So you got a young core that's getting to understand how to play with each other. That's a tough team. I mean, they've got a solid player for each position right now, and most of them are young. So, I mean, the sky's the limit. They're 11-5 right now. I don't think they're going to move too far down the power rankings. Not right now. I think that I just think they're a tough team. I think, they have so much firepower and they can hit you from so many angles that, they're just a tough team right now. I think that they're going to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the Western Conference to come out when it's playoff time. I think they'll be in the top 4 spots.
Yeah. So I got the Oklahoma City Thunder for all the reasons you just explained. But I want to throw in one more quick point. I think the addition of Chet Holmgren has definitely been severely underrated. I think what he gives this team is a whole new scoring punch. If you look at this team last season, if Shea didn't give it to you or Jalen Williams, that was kind of their 1-2 punch. Lou Dort would give you some spots here and there, but he was mainly their primary defender. I think we can all agree that. But just having Chet, who's been a great pickup offensively, his floor spacing, his ability to create his own shot at the size that he is, at 7 foot, 7'1", whatever you want to give him. And then his defense. I think his defense helps that team reach a whole new level that they didn't have last season. I mean, when you see him, blocking veterans, not just rookies, but veteran players who've been playing in this league for a long time, just throwing their shot into the bleachers like he's been here, like he's done this before. And I think when you add the emergence of Chet Holmgren and the fact that he's only getting better from here each game he plays with this team, I think it's very indicative of the jump that they've made this season and why they're number 2 in my power rankings.
Okay, well, number 2 on mine right now, the San Antonio Spurs. Just number 2.
Okay.
Number 2. And I've got to give you your props. You did call this. The Minnesota Timberwolves are my number 2 team right now in the whole NBA. Just look at the teams that they've beaten. They've beaten the Golden State Warriors, the Sixers, the Nuggets, the Celtics, and the Pelicans. And that's impressive for a team that I had not penciled in. I mean, they were going to make the playoffs. They were going to be a good team, but I didn't expect them to make that type of leap to where they could be true contenders. They've had some tough losses at the beginning: Toronto, Atlanta, Phoenix, and Sacramento. But overall, like you said, Anthony Edwards has really, since this summer, since playing with the Team USA, has been really, really good. And he's carried that into the season. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is finally, like you said, finding his way. I guess he kind of understands how he needs to play with this team, and he's stepping up when he needs to. And I think that's adding a lot. And as you said, Rudy Gobert, he's been a key player for them. Everybody hated that trade when they got him, but he has been. I guess I saw it as him kind of being taking away the deficiencies of Karl Anthony Towns. He kind of work that out, and he doesn't have to. He's not a big time offensive player, so then you have a guy like Cat that can light it up. So you have that 1-2 punch that, not really a twin towers, but a current. I guess you can call them twin towers. But really, at 11-4, they've been a surprise team of the whole league, especially out west, where they now are the leading team out west. Can they hold that up? Going to have to, for whatever reason. I'm probably going to regret saying this, but I have to agree with you. I think that they will finish this season at least in the top 3 because they're just that good. They've been playing that well. They have the cohesion that I didn't think they would ever have because I didn't think they were a very smart organization, but something has triggered them to actually get it together this season so far. So I see some big things for them. I think they're going to be a tough out come playoff time, and I think they're going to make a big leap. And yeah, man. You called it. I will give you your props. You called that.
Man, I'll never take for granted how good it feels when I'm right. When someone tells me I'm right, man, dog, especially about basketball. Anyway, that being to the side, of course, my number one team, everybody's number one team at this point should be the Boston Celtics. And by no stretch am I a Boston Celtics fan, but the basketball that they have been playing this year has been some good basketball, man. I mean, the way they were giving the Bucks the most epic butt whooping on live television of all time. I mean, they had them boys looking scared. They had that boy Giannis. Giannis had him looking like he forgot how to play basketball. Man was missing layups, dunks. They were playing great defense. They didn't even have to guard Chris Middleton because he belongs in a retirement home. Damian Lillard for the first 2.5 quarters, almost 3 quarters, looked like a shell of himself before he started just deciding to actually, drive the basketball instead of just shooting 30-footers. But when you just look at how the Celtics are looking, man, I mean, Derek White playing great. I mean, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, we already know what they bring to the table. I want to say that Jaylen Brown deserves some props. Worked on that left hand. He's just being a better playmaker at that 2-guard position, or 3. Sometimes he plays the 3, but he's been playing way better in terms of his playmaking. Obviously, his defense is still pretty good. And then in addition to Kristaps Porzingis, even that game with the Bucks, you could tell with him down there as opposed to Al Horford, he can bother those bigs, those Brook Lopez's, those Giannis's. He can guard them. I'm not saying he can shut them down by any stretch, but he can definitely bother them enough where they don't see him come weak side. They're getting their stuff thrown into the bleachers as well, right? And so when you got the cohesive unit of the Boston Celtics and you see how dysfunctional the Milwaukee Bucks have looked, like, it's clear as day who the number one team in the Eastern Conference and the entire NBA is, and it's the Boston Celtics.
Well, I mean, there's nothing else I can say about that. That's my number one team, 12-4. They just dismantled the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, their only real blemish, I would say, is their overtime loss to the Charlotte Hornets, but every team can afford one bad game, So I think they might have surpassed the Denver Nuggets as the best starting lineup in the NBA right now. They just, every key piece knows their position and plays it well. Derek White, I mean, he's just been, ever since he let the hairline go, he's been a good player for them since he got there. So I think that he's just kind of elevated his game. Porzingis seems to fit right in with what they have. Jaylen Brown, he's still, to me, hit and miss, but he's been more hit so far this season. And when he's been a miss, luckily Tatum has pretty much taken up, his part of the team whenever he's just, Brown just hasn't been able to get it going. But they have so many scorers and so many guys that play defense well too, that they're just I thought Milwaukee was a shoe-in. I don't see Milwaukee even. I would say unless they make some major changes or they just start clicking all of a sudden, I don't see them even getting to the conference finals now, because I just don't think they have it. Surprisingly, they have one of the best offenses in the NBA right now, but it just doesn't look like it. They don't look like a cohesive team like Boston does. Boston looks like a complete team right now. And it's only they're 16 games in, and they look like a complete team. Barring any injuries, that's only going to get better. And Milwaukee they're still figuring stuff out. So even if they start, like I said, even if they start clicking, a team that plays so well now, only going to get better as we go on throughout the season. So yeah, that's our power rankings for this week. Like I said, they may change. Probably some, there'll be some changes the next time we do this. Maybe mid-season we'll try to do another power rankings. But for now, our top 5, that was them. And I'm gonna give myself a little bit of credit here because I gave you your props, but 3 of the top 5 teams in the power rankings are from what conference?
You want to bring up the East versus West thing?
The 3.
All I'm gonna say is there's a lot of people that's downplaying the West, and the West is very injury riddled right now. More specifically, the Phoenix Suns, who was a team that I could have put, but anyway, I didn't put them because they're hurt. But they have won 6 in a row. Just saying, which is like another team that's in the power rankings, but. Whatever. That's cool. That's cool.
This is your power rankings validated my assessment that the East, the East has risen to be the best conference in the.
You gotta look top to bottom because somebody in the Eastern Conference by the name of the Detroit Pistons is one of the worst teams in the entire NBA, or the worst team, excuse me, along with. Yeah, just throwing that out there. The Pistons are like losing like a 13-game losing streak. That's part of the Eastern Conference. So they're pretty bad.
My Spurs are doing everything possible to compare to them when it comes to losing streaks. I think our losing streak is going to be a little longer than theirs. So, the Western Conference. I don't know. I think the champion's going to come out from the East this year. So that's just my. Even though I said the Nuggets, the Nuggets, and maybe we'll talk about them at some point soon because they're looking. It's early, but they're having their issues. They're missing Jamal Murray.
They just need Jamal Murray, man. Stop. All they need is Jamal Murray, and they're gonna be right back in it. Come on, man. That man Jokic back hurts. That's
losing to the Houston Rockets like they did was not. That doesn't give me hope. Well, your Lakers, Houston, beat them by almost 30. So, I guess Houston just is a top team killer. But anyway, we're going to get out of here. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe. Of course, we'll be back on Wednesday with the Midweek Mayhem hosted by Big Nige. So, come check us out there. And you'll hear some more crazy hot takes from us and just more crazy opinions. Again, we appreciate you guys. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. All the links will be in the description. So thank you guys. And Zoom's about to kick us out. So we're getting out of here.
Peace.